You can do better. Of course you can do better. But you won't be able to move on as long as you're still allowing access and giving contact to somebody that you know is not right for you, that has a negative impact on your quality of life. These kinds of people are only interested in what they can take from you. It's an exploitative dynamic. Every single time you let them get access to you, worm their way back into your life, they reopen the wound, and it makes it so much harder for you to be able to move on. At the end of the day, they only want to be able to meet their needs at your expense. Whether that's time, energy, resources, your body, just being in your energy, they will take whatever it is that they can get, ultimately at your expense, because they have no incentive to change. Part of the recognition within this is seeing that it is an exploitative dynamic that you're caught in. These people will only show up when it's on their terms. And as I mentioned, whether they're getting their time, their energy, money, access to your body, gratifying themselves physically, it will always be conditional on when it works for them. If you find yourself in a dynamic like this, it is a form of a situationship. It's ultimately manipulative. It's exploitative. You're not actually being treated as an equal. You're not being respected. You're not being valued. You're not being appreciated. And this has nothing to do with your worth as a human being. This is really about that person choosing not to commit because they're not being held to that standard. At the end of the day, this has nothing to do with capability, nothing to do with worthiness. It's about seeing that person for who they are and what they're trying to take from the dynamic. And they will continue to take until boundaries are enforced, until you start to respect yourself, until you start to value yourself, who you are and what you bring to the table. They are going to continue to play that game because they have no reason not to. So far, it's been working for them. They're able to get what they want. They don't have to commit. They detach, they exit, and they reappear in your life, and they don't care. They actually don't care how much harm that this is causing. I have seen this over and over and over again where people have been left in distress, left overwhelmed, communicating how much this is hurting them, communicating how much they want a committed relationship, and yet being in denial about the nature of the person that's in front of them. You can't idealize, you can't fantasize that this person's going to be somebody that they're not. You have to look at the behavior and see the choices that this person is making in terms of how they're treating you. It's not that you're hard to love. It's not that you're not lovable. It's not that you're not worth being with. They just don't feel that they need to put the effort in to maintain this dynamic because you're letting them get away with it. Every single time they weasel their way back in, every single time they worm their way back into your energy space, they reopen the wound. They start to assert a degree of control to get you back in that high of being in the chaos, the not knowing where you stand, and then they exit again. And they are able to do so because they have no remorse, they have no regret over how they're treating you, because they're not invested, because this isn't a relationship to them. This is just an avenue and a means for them to meet their needs. And it's ultimately at your expense. The game will stop when you stop playing. You have to see this as a circus. When you're entertaining clowns, you're ultimately going to the circus. You have to treat yourself with a level of love, consistency, and respect, and you have to demand that off the people that come into your life that want to be in a relationship with you. Being no doubt about this, they are not confused about what they're doing. They know that this isn't okay. They know that there are certain people that if they were to date or if they were to try and use or manipulate or exploit, that it just wouldn't fly. They're very aware of their behavior. They are just hoping that you aren't going to wake up to the game that's happening. If they can keep you in a dysregulated and overwhelmed state, if they can keep you holding on to the fantasy of what could be, you know, and some of these people are great talkers, they'll future pace and tell you about all the things that you are going to do together and how things are going to be in the future. But the reality is they are not committing. They are not showing you through their behavior that they love, value, appreciate, or respect you as a person or as a partner. And that is ultimately a very calculated thing. They are solely focused on meeting their needs at your expense. This is not something that they're not aware of. They have conscious awareness that what they're doing is wrong. They know they're disrespecting you. They know that they're using you. They know that they're exploiting you. And you have to see that that's not love. Somebody that actually cares about you will not treat you like that. No matter how much rhetoric or what way they frame this to you, that is not love. And if they can see that you're in distress and they've no problem exiting and leaving you in a dysregulated state, trying to pick up your life again, and then they enter them when it's convenient and do it all over again, that's not love. That is exploitative. There's no other word for it. Look, you have to see it this way. They won't choose you, but they won't leave either. So they're happy enough to keep you in a perpetual state of limbo, that you're not able to focus on yourself, that you're not able to pour into yourself and actually advance your life, because they know when you're in a state of overwhelm, they know when you're dysregulated and you can't think and you're worrying about them and you don't know when they're going to contact, you don't know when the next experience you're going to have with them is going to be, that you're stuck and they've got control. You're not able to advance your life, but you're also not able to meet anybody else because they are taking up so much rent in your brain, causing you all this overwhelm, all this anxiety, all this heartache, and they don't care. But you have to see it like this: they're not going to leave of their own accord. They have no incentive to change. They love the power, they love the attention, they love the control that it gets, they love the fact that they have you in a string. And at the end of the day, that's coercive. You know, it's completely manipulative, it's toxic, it's controlling, it's exploitative. I can't say exploitative anymore because that is exactly what it is. And they are choosing to do this. So when you look at that as choice and look at the behavior for what it is rooted in disrespect. And you have to see that for what that is. They are choosing to keep entering your life. They're choosing to meet their needs at your expense. And they ultimately don't care. They couldn't care at the end of the day. But they also won't move on. They won't let you move on because they feel like they've got all this influence, they've got all this control, and their ego is getting stroked. You have to see that for what that is. That is not anything that resembles a loving partner at all. And you can't say that that person has the potential to be a loving partner. You have to see them for who they are through the sum of their choices and how they have shown up and the impact that that has had in your life. You are not hard to love. You're not. They are just unwilling to put the work in to meet you in that place where you feel loved, valued, and respected. This has nothing to do with your worthiness, nothing to do with you being lovable. It is about their lack of capability, lack of commitment, and lack of respect for what you bring to the table. You're worth so much better. You deserve more. You know in your heart you deserve better. And of course you can do better. You've always known that you could do better. They are just hoping that you won't see them for who they are and that this charade, this circus can continue endlessly so that they can just meet their needs at your expense. But you're onto them. You can see them now for what they are. And once you see them for what they are, you give them the boot and you never look back. Because anytime you look back and you let that access happen, that's when we go back to the circus and that's when we get stuck in these games. But when you recognize your worth, you choose differently, you choose better because you recognize this has nothing to do with your sense of worthiness, how lovable or how good of a partner you are. It has everything to do with them and the lack of respect, the lack of capability that's in them to treat another person like a decent human being. You have to choose yourself in these moments. You have to recognize the impact that this person has had in your life, the impact that they've had in your nervous system. It's very likely you're not sleeping, your eating's probably up the left, you're not able to stay present throughout the day, and that's not an indicator that this is a healthy dynamic to be in. So if you're resonating with this video, if you're starting to recognize these signs and you're starting to see that there's a pattern at play, this begins to stop when you choose you, when you begin to prioritize your own peace. You stop performing, you stop molding yourself into something that you're not. You stop agreeing to these terms and conditions that this person has set. You stop being accessible for all their nonsense. Because at the end of the day, if their presence is conditional on what you can do for them, that's not a relationship. You begin to set boundaries, you begin to speak up for yourself, you assert yourself. If they push back and they're like, this doesn't work for me, it's not my terms, let them go. Let them go. Let them batter on. They do not deserve a place in your life. When they leave, your self-esteem doesn't leave with it. Your self-respect goes up because you've honoured yourself, you've valued yourself, you've respected who you are and what you bring to the table. And they don't deserve a seat or a space in your life when they're choosing to treat you like this. And that is the most important thing. It might be difficult, it might feel overwhelming, it might feel heartbreaking and sad. But when you choose you don't let your self-esteem and self-worth get affected because you're advocating for yourself. You're showing the world, you're showing this person, I'm not tolerating this anymore. I'm not hacking this from somebody who is auditioning to be in my life that has the audacity to treat me like this. No chance. You don't allow that going forward. And if that's the game that they want to play, they can play it with somebody else. But you're not participating in that anymore.